Into Welcome and thank you for joining us today for the Precision Dairy Farming from Hooves to Harvest webinar series. This series is brought to you by the UVM Extension Northwest Crops and Soils team and is sponsored by the Vermont Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets. We have a great lineup of speakers joining us over the next 2 weeks from all over the country and also some local experts. And we'll be digging into a variety of topics, exploring technologies available to dairy farmers. We'll be starting the series this week, hearing about some of the more cow-side aspects of technology, and then move next week into some of the tools that are used out in the field. You can use the Zoom link that was provided to you when you registered to access all of the series. There are water quality educational credits and also certified crop advisor credits available for each session. And we will share the link and the QR code at the end of the session. And there will also be 3 poll questions throughout the presentation that will pop up for you. If you would give them an answer when you see them on your screen, we'd really appreciate it. If you have any questions during any of the presentations, if you could just enter them in the chat and we'll facilitate them after each speaker. And lastly, these sessions will all be recorded and posted to the Northwest Crops and Soils website, so you can access them there forever.
I'm going to add one thing to what Amber just shared. For the Agency of Ag Water Quality educational credits, you need to send me, my name is Susan Foulette. I'm going to have a hard copy sheet, so you need to send me your name of the farm, and the size of the farm. So you can either do that in chat, or you can do that on an email, susan.roulette@uvm.edu. Thank you.
All right. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and introduce our first speaker. Today we have Bryce Warriner. We're going to hear from him about navigating CowManager's health and nutrition modules. Bryce is a sales and technical support specialist for CowManager, and he provides solutions for technical problems, insights for on-farm issues, and guidance for customers to enable maximum efficiency of their CowManager systems. In addition, Bryce breeds cows as a part-time relief technician for Premier Select Sires and assists with day-to-day operations at Speedwell Farms, and he's joining us from Lyndonville, Vermont today. Looks good, Bryce.
Thank you. I was struggling to unmute my laptop. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm excited to have a little presentation about the health and nutrition modules at CowManager. I know this webinar is more focused on cow health, but in my eyes, health and nutrition go hand in hand with each other with our system. A little bit about myself. So I didn't grow up on a dairy farm. I grew up on a 70 cow Angus and Holstein show heifer hobby farm out in Western New York. My father, he had been an AI sales rep for 25 years. And it always used to be the coolest thing to be able to ride along with him and see all of his accounts when we were younger. So that kind of sparked a little bit of my passion for the dairy industry, as well as the Holstein show heifers. I attended SUNY Morrisville, and while I was there, I made really good use of my internships. I spent some time at 120 cow Lely robotic herd as an assistant herds manager during COVID, and then also did an internship at Pleasant Valley Farms in Richford, Vermont. and then started working for Premier Select Sires my last year at college. CowManager, if you don't have yet, if you haven't heard about it yet, were the orange ear tags. We first originally started out just doing ear temperature measurement, and then slowly progressed into the 3-module system that we have today, which includes fertility, health, and nutrition. And we're a rapidly growing company. I think we've tripled our workforce in the last 2 years. So we're rapidly expanding and becoming more valuable globally. We offer a variety of things, including ear temperature, shared data, so that way your employees, vet, nutritionists, and other farm consultants can be able to access the data and partner up with you to be able to work on issues going on around the farm. We have lifetime warranty, transition alerts for at-risk cows towards calving, and we're always trying to improve our system, always trying to make things better and give our customers the best product available. Our ear sensor, when it comes in the mail, will just need to be activated with a magnet, and then we can either fit around RFID buttons for parlors and sort gates, or we do have blank dummy RFID buttons that we can fit around if your operation isn't using RFID buttons. And it's a simple plug and play system. The sensors or the hardware will just plug into a 110 outlet in the barn with one piece of hardware plugging into a laptop, and the sensors will transmit the data that they collect to the routers in the barn, which then send it to the coordinator, which is plugged into the computer and uploads into our server via internet. We have a mobile app and web application in addition to our control center, which is almost like a check-in for your system, making sure that everything's running properly on the computer side. And we also integrate with over 40 herd management systems, just about everything that's pretty common in the US. Some of them we do also do two-way interfaces, which will send the data back to your herd management system. So now we'll dig into some of the more details. So our health alert or our health module will include high active, active, not active, eating and rumination for each hour and each day, as well as ear temperature. Excuse me, sorry. A lot of times we see that you'll get an alert 1 to 2 days before clinical illness, and we can pick up on displaced abomasum, mastitis, metritis, metabolic issues, and even often at times pick up several other diseases. This is a overview of what our health alert list looks like. It's based on 4 different levels, suspicious being the lowest level, and being the most severe. No movement usually means that the cow's dead, or she lost her tag, or she's laid flat out in a stall for whatever reason, which can be, it's kind of crucial to be able to have that, so that way you can just check on them. Sick and very sick. Very sick is what we see most. Suspicious and very sick. In addition, we also have little icons. I'm not sure if you guys will be able to see it on your end, but if you look on the big computer there's a couple arrows pointing in different directions. That icon signals that they've had a group change within the last 2 days. And then there's also a thermostat to notify you when their ear temperature is dropped 12 degrees below the group average. this is on a cow card, personal cow basis. We're able to monitor the recovery of sick cows after the health alert has been thrown. So that way you will know when to stop treatment. And here you can see the difference between a sick cow that's recovering and a very healthy cow. Red is high active, orange is active, yellow is not active, green is eating, and blue is rumination. The nutrition module is more focused. It takes the data from the health module and puts it into more of a group overview type of display. And it also focuses a lot more on the transition period. One of the studies that we have looked into shows that 75% of all adult cow diseases find their origin in the transition period. So with the nutrition module, we're able to identify those at-risk cows almost 2 months before calving, and that alert will stay with them for 30 days after calving, just so that way you can make sure to keep an extra eye on them and be able to monitor them closer. This is a graphic to show the data that we've seen with those at-risk alerts. On the left, you can see a cow that is perfectly fine and eating. And on the right is a cow that is struggling pre-calving and also has issues post-calving. A little bit about these graphs. So the dark brown line going down the middle, that's going to be the group average eating and rumination combined. And then the shaded area is the first standard deviation from that average. The black line is the individual cow that you're looking at. And we'll throw those at-risk alerts after that particular cow drops below that first standard deviation. In addition, the nutrition module also includes group alerts, such as low feed intake and group health alerts. Another one would be heat stress. We're able to monitor heat stress to be able to, based on panting, so that way you can change your heat abatement protocols. We can see that on the left with a low feed intake alert, it almost looks like probably that feed isn't getting pushed up enough, or that particular group isn't getting enough feed if they're getting fed once a day. So that's a sign that maybe to push up feed a little bit more, or just some of those things. We can also analyze groups and analyze eating and rumination and not active hours around the transition period. On the left, you can see a little icon there that it signifies a ration change that's happened. And some of the ration changes have benefited this particular herd, and some ration changes have caused the animals to eat and ruminate less, which is kind of useful to help monitor how changes are going. We've also used this particular graph to be able to assist with on-farm issues as well. One that's coming to mind is repro issues. I worked with a herd that we've been able to use these graphs to look at their eating and rumination hours and not active hours when they were having repro issues, to kind of get a better judgment, and came to the conclusion that there was a lack of energy in the diet. So the cows were cycling, but not being active enough for the activity system to pick up. On the right, we call that the transition comparison graph. So this particular one is based around calving, but we can also look at eating, rumination, not active around dry off, to be able to see how your current protocols are going, or if you make changes, you can set the the two graphs to be at two different time frames to be able to monitor and see how those changes have either benefited or hurt your operation. We're going to dive into a little bit of the return on investment on the CowManager system. So this is Wayside Dairy out in Wisconsin. They've been a customer of ours for 4 years now. And they're a really well run operation. The best way to describe them is the operation, or the barns are so clean there that you could eat off the ground. So a really well run operation, and this is how they've benefited them. So the owner is Jeremy Natsky. They milk 2,300 cows. They have just over 2,400 sensors in their system. So this is some of the changes that we've seen since putting in the activity system. Their percentage of cull cows has gone down by 6%. Metritis cases have gone down by 11%. Pneumonia has gone down by 32%. A couple of these health breakdowns you can see that they've actually had an increase in percentage. And that's just due to the fact that they've been able to see those diseases before, or track those diseases where normally they wouldn't have been able to see them, such as diarrhea and ketosis. Catch a few more cases and treat cows faster, so that way they can get back on track faster. Also, within the first 2 years of putting in the system, they saw their 4-week milk go up by almost 10 pounds, and their 8-week milk go up by 6 pounds as well. Being able to treat those cows faster and get them on track faster allows for them to be able to produce more milk throughout their lactation. And some of the costs that we've seen. So with this system being 2,400 tags, software would be $5,400 a month, with total monthly cost being $6,400. And that's with 3 modules. Their total overall incentive between all 3 modules was $631,120, with a yearly cost of $83,500. Which would provide them with an annual value of $697, just shy of $700,000. I was a little fast on my presentation. I was too worried about the time limit. So, are there any questions?
Thanks, Bryce. I don't see any in the chat, but feel free to add any questions if they come up. I had a quick question about you said that the CowManager app integrates with other herd management programs. And I was just wondering, it kind of looks like you don't input information in your app. Do you do whatever you're using then sync?
We can either run as a standalone system, or we can interface with your herd management system, which is where, for example, you'd put in your data into your herd management system, and based on how it's set up, would send over that information to CowManager automatically, however often that we have it set up for. Some are set up to run once a day, some are set up to run every hour. All depends on what the customer wants and how they want it set up.
Gotcha. And Annie is asking my second question. You gave the cost analysis for a pretty large dairy. Can you break it down a little bit for a smaller size dairy? Like, is there a per tag? I know is there a subscription fee and the hardware fee? Can you break that down for a smaller scale for us?
Yep. So the cost per tag is $37. per sensor. And then the hardware going in the barn is roughly 1,500 for the coordinator and one router, and then 700 for every router after that. A router will cover 300-foot diameter. So depending on how many barns you have and how the operation is set up, usually on 100 cows you can get away with just $1,500 with in the barn hardware, and the tags and hardware get spread over 5 years, 60 payments, and then the software will get broken down into either monthly, quarterly, yearly, or 5-yearly payments. And that's going to run roughly for a 2-module system, will be about $2 per cow per month. On 3 modules will be about $2.50 per cow per month.
Great, thanks. And how does this translate for grazing herds? Do they only sync when they come into the barn or near the transmitter?
Yep. So we also have a solar router too for pastures, as well. So when we set up grazing dairies, we often at times try to set up those solar routers to hit the locations where the cows are going to spend most, whether that be where the water source is, or if you're feeding a little bit of hay out on pasture, we kind of focus those solar routers to be where the cows are going to be most of the time. If you don't have any solar routers, then they will still check in when they come into the barn. Our sensors will store data for 7 days before they discard it. So they check in quite frequently, even if there aren't solar routers out in the pasture.
Great. And you went through like the return on investment for the large farm. Can you speak for just a second about the return on investment tool that you folks have to work with farms if they're considering putting in CowManager?
Yes. So we have a return on investment calculator that we can run for different herd sizes. So that way it's more personalized for you, because 150 cow farm is going to have different numbers than a 2,400 cow farm. So the best way would be to reach out to a Select Sires representative or myself to be able to get a personalized return on investment calculator ran, where we can put in more personal inputs for metritis and mastitis cases, as well as some of the repro inputs that go into a return on investment, with shots, with off-sync usage and preg rate changes. Does that answer the question, Amber?
Yes, definitely. I think that's just a really, really useful tool that I've seen out there. And I think we can share your contact information with anyone.
Yes. Yep.
Perfect.
I can type it in the chat if you'd like.
That would be outstanding. All right, and yeah, and if you want to stop sharing your screen, we will get our
Did
next
you see
speaker
that
up
question
there.
from Devon,
Oh.
Amber?
I saw Annie's question and Cheryl's question. I don't see it. If you have it.
Oh, okay, I
Susan.
wonder if you sent it to me. Anyway, Devon's asking, do a lot of people use the feed module? We have had a lot of issues with mycotoxins, and it's been hard to manage feed intakes and dry matters, etc. Just watching the cows.
So I'd say probably about 1/3 of our customers use the nutrition module at the current moment. But that's always growing. It's kind of it's our newest module. So a lot of our old customers, it can be a challenge to it can sometimes be a challenge to get for them to want to add that on. But we do offer nutrition free trials as well for new customers and current customers, for them to be able to try it. A lot of times we don't turn it on until they need it. For example, I have a couple of our accounts out in New York. They were having mycotoxin issues, and wanted to see some of the nutrition data to be able to work with their nutritionist. That we've turned it on for them, so that way we can work with them, and work through the issues that they're having. And then we have current customers. Probably the closest one to here would be a 3,000 cow farm that has the nutrition module. And they've been having issues with fresh cows, and a decreased milk production, that they've already had the nutrition module, but we've been working with their nutritionist to be able to train them on how to look at the data and use the data, and kind of come to a conclusion on what part of the operation needs to be looked at, to be able to solve the issues.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Bryce. If you want to stop sharing your screen, and Joe, you can get your screen up while we introduce you. Our second speaker today is Joe Gilbert. He's the territory manager with smaXtec Incorporated. Joe was the youngest of 7 children and was raised on a dairy farm. He received his bachelor's degree in dairy science from Cornell University, and then spent 8 years as a herd manager on his family's 150 cow dairy. He then spent 18 years in the dairy equipment and supply business. He is currently an account manager for smaXtec for New York and New England, and is joining us today from Central New York. Looks good, Joe.
All right. Well, thank you. I've been with smaXtec for 2 years. smaXtec is relatively new to the U.S. market. Been in the industry in Austria, is where they originated, and they've been over there for about 15 years. So they're very well established in Europe. But what we do different is we do internal monitoring using a bolus inside the cow's reticulum. It is very accurate. So we do feel that we got the best ability to catch subclinical issues using our very accurate internal temperature. So what we do, this up here, this is the bolus. We do a herd health, reproduction, and rumination. Herd health is your temperature, reproduction is your activity for estrus detection, and then we have rumination, because we are measuring rumination from the reticulum. So we are measuring rumination as close to the rumen as anybody. We do feel that's more accurate than some of the other systems out there. So we do feel that the inside monitoring is unparalleled. There are several different systems out there for monitoring cows. We are in the center of the cow, so we are accurate within 1/1800ths of a degree, which is extremely accurate. There is no maintenance to this. You put it in the cow, it stays in that cow forever. There's no collar, ear tag, or neck, ankle bracelet, or anything else to catch anything and hurt the cow. This is a typical graph that you would see for an individual cow. So we do this in 24-hour increments. So this is 24 hours, this is 24 hours. What we're looking at here is water volume is this blue line. We are the first in the world to actually be able to build an exactly how much water the cow drinks on a daily basis. The activity is your red line down here. Drinking frequency is going to your blue line that drops down here. And how we get the drinking frequency is that's the actual temperature of the bolus. So every time she takes a drink, it decreases the temperature inside the reticulum because the water is colder than the cow. So you see how often this cow is drinking. The black line up here is your average core body temperature for 10 days. And then we get into rumination is your green squiggly line here. And then ideal rumination is in the shaded green area. Cows that are fed a high roughage diet will tend to be up in the higher portion. Higher concentrate operations will tend to run a little lower. We're kind of looking for consistency. We do have the ability, if you scroll over the graph, it will give you data on that specific point on the graph. So this particular cow at this time was 101.89 degrees. the temperature of the bolus, and her normal average body temperature was almost 103. Because we measure temperature of the core of the cow, we are going to read a degree or so above normal, but the key thing is to look at the cow's individual average temperature. Very simple system to use. If you've ever installed a bolus, very simple to install. We do activate ours with a magnet as well. You put it in the cow, goes in the cow's reticulum. It sends basically a Wi-Fi to a base station that's plugged into a 110 volt outlet. Through cell signal, it'll send it to the cloud, and then it comes back to you on your phone, computer. So we don't require it any kind of internet on the farm, except for to retrieve the information on your desktop. Okay. This is what it will look like on the farm. Pretty simple to install. The base station basically takes 4 screws and it's mounted. This longer antenna is the one we use in North America, and that does require 4 screws as well, but it's pretty simple. You put in 8 screws, plug the thing in, and it goes to communicating. So the idea with smaXtec is, instead of waiting for the cow to get down here where she's clinically sick, we want to catch her way ahead of that. So here are some of the icons you will see on the graphs in your alerts. We do high temperature, low temperature. Our newest feature is using artificial intelligence to detect mastitis, and we can typically detect mastitis 3 to 4 days before she has clinical. Rumination, decreased activity, heat stress, insufficient water intake, and that's all. These are done as an individual cow and in groups. So if a group of cows quits drinking, you get 1 alert on the whole group, and then you either go out and turn the water back on or thaw the pipe, whichever the case may be. We do offer a pH bolus to be able to monitor pH on a cow. So this would one you would see if you actually had a pH bolus, and then you have your heat detection. So the internal body temperature, what we do is early detection of a lot of illnesses. So this is just a partial list: mastitis, ketosis, metritis, milk fever, pneumonia, water volume. Lameness is another one we can do, and we'll get into that a little bit later. So if you look at your average lactation curve, ideally we want this to stay up high. If a cow has issues, then you're looking at antibiotics, withdrawal, period for withholding milk. So if a cow has, and these are just examples, it could be in any order here, but a cow gets sick and she's going to have some treatment and lose milk production, odds are she's not going to get back to her potential. Ideally, we're going to catch her 3 to 4 days before she goes clinical, give her some kind of help to have a lower dip in production, decrease antibiotics, and be able to get her back to her peak potential for a more profitable scenario. Very, very simple system to use. It's kind of like you're running Windows. You click a button and it's pretty self-explanatory. We do have an app for the phone. We also have a desktop version. We do also integrate with a lot of the systems on the market, both in the US. The common ones in North America are going to be your PC Dart and Dairycom 305. Typical mastitis case, you're going to have an increase in temperature. And typically with mastitis, you're going to have an increase in temperature that only lasts a couple hours, and then she goes back to normal. So if you're doing rectal temperatures to try to catch these sick cows, you might miss her if you do a temperature over here. So this particular cow, they didn't believe the alert, so they ignored it. 24 hours later, she has another high temperature alert. Another 24 hours later, basically, and she has a third one. This is when the cow would be clinical. So our goal is the guys actually believe the alert back here and do a CMT paddle, determine she's got mastitis, and then determine their plan of action from there, whether they're going to treat her or truck her. And then we can hopefully eliminate an awful lot of these, which we do. If guys catch it here, we can eliminate an awful lot of these. We're not going to eliminate all of them, the nature of the beast. Another example of a mastitis case, you see the temperature increase, another temperature increase, and another temperature increase. And this is an incident of metritis. This is our calving alert. And a couple days after she calved, she's got a high temperature alert. And with metritis, typically you'll see a temperature spike. Typically it's more like this. It'll go up and it stays up a little bit longer. So she probably doesn't have a severe case of metritis, but and I question back here, she got some low activity. Something else was going on back here. Pneumonia, very similar to metritis. You get an increase in temperature and it stays up. In this particular case, she was treated right about in here, and you see a decrease in temperature, and that's very indicative of the fact that whatever you treated her with is working. Obviously, she needed another shot here, and she should be back on track here shortly. Milk fever is pretty easy to pick up as well, and we do actually catch milk fever pre-calving and post-calving. Calving alert, the cow's temperature actually will drop, which will indicate a calving. The calving alert will typically give you an alert about 12 to 18 hours before the cow calves. Very, very accurate on healthy cows. If the cow is predisposed to ketosis or milk fever, you may get an alert and then find out she's got milk fever ketosis before she freshens over here. But this particular cow, she calved somewhere in here. Rumination dropped, which is this icon here. Rumination drops, which is pretty typical when they calve. When they're calving, they're worried about giving birth. They don't eat, so rumination typically drops. And then you see a decrease in temperature and decrease in activity, which is indicative of milk fever. Ketosis and displaced abomasum. This particular cow had ketosis over here. There's a decrease in temperature, which is indicative of ketosis. Struggles a little bit with her rumination. There's a little bit of low activity. And over here, she has another decrease in temperature, but she quit drinking. So you don't see any blue drops down here. So she quit drinking. That's an indication she's about ready to crash. Rumination drops, and she's a full-blown DA over here. If the farm had paid attention to the alerts, some of that could have been mitigated. Acute lameness. So lameness is kind of a cool one, at least for me. I think it's kind of cool. Back here, this cow's not drinking very often, which indicates to me that she was probably dry. She has a couple high temperature alerts, but what we want to look at here is over here for the lameness. Every time you see a spike in activity at the same time she takes a drink, okay, she goes back and lays down again. She has increase in activity because she went to go get something to eat and drink. She lays down again, goes get something to eat and drink again. When you see this pattern here, it's indicative of she's lame. So we can catch a lot of these cows before they're serious lame. There we go. Heat detection. This is our heat index. So this cow is in heat. She's at peak heat here. Typically with heat, you will see rumination drop. So this is a really good heat. With heat detection, we also give you an ideal breeding window, and that would be this window here. So it gives you a time that the ideal breeding window opens. Green is considered a very good time. Orange is okay. And then red is kind of the tail end where you'd want a breeder. This report actually also gives you a real quick look at cycle length. So this particular cow, for whatever reason, she got bred and there were 70 days between cycles. She probably got bred. She was probably pregnant and had an early embryonic death and reabsorbed. And then 4 days trying to get her cycles work back out from the hormone change. And then she kind of evened out. But this cow, if you look at something like this, you're probably not going to be afraid to throw semen in that cow because she's cycling pretty good. I'm suspecting because she's on this list, 65 days is beyond her voluntary wait period. They're probably going to throw semen in her. Calving alert. is this orangish yellow line. You can see this blue line just below the black line. That's when her temperature drops. We know when she's going to calve. So the calving alert algorithm turns on about 14 days before she calves. So this is an indication she's going to calve. You get the alert, and right in here, she calved, and we can see that on the graph when activity actually will spike a little bit because she's done giving birth. She gets up and gets a lick in the calf, and then next thing she does is get a drink. So water volume and frequency, we went over a little bit of this. The blue line is your frequency, or the dark blue line is your frequency. The light blue line is water intake. So we are the first in the world to be able to give you a water intake, and we can do this in gallons or liters. That's your preference. The Y temperature is best. It's kind of highlighted here in the green. And this is research. I can't pronounce half these names, but this is research that was done over in Europe. Any kind of illness is going to result in an increase in the body's animal's body temperature above normal. And we only need about a 9/10 of a degree deviation to throw an alert, either up or down. And okay, 2/3 of the cows show increase in temperature 4 days before diagnosis of clinical mastitis. So we are catching subclinical mastitis more frequently and earlier than most anybody else out there. Temperature increases do result in reduced rumination, and we've got some research to validate that. So basically what happens is when a cow gets sick and she feels kind of cruddy, she's going to quit eating, and then you're going to see the rumination drop. So if we can catch those temperature deviations before she has a rumination issue, we all know rumination is, once it's stopped, it's hard to get it going again. So we want to keep that rumen function at her prime all the time. This is one of our graphs. We've taken most everything off except for rumination and activity, which is most of the monitoring systems out there. That's what they offer. Looking at this graph, there's very difficult to find anything wrong with that cow. And then once we do add temperature on there, this cow had ketosis. She's 13 days in milk. She has ketosis over here. Then she has some metritis, and she self-cures a little bit. Another bout of ketosis. A couple days later, she has mastitis, and you will see the thermometer up here. It's got an exclamation point on it. This one does not. This is 9/10 of a degree above normal, and this one's about 1.8 degrees above normal. So this is a little more serious. So she'll show up on your list as being more severe. So one of the things we do offer now is artificial intelligence. We're working on looking at the 500,000 cows we have on monitoring, knowing what the cow has, and being able to identify that in other cows across the world and give you an alert. So the first disease we're using artificial intelligence on is actually mastitis. So we are detecting mastitis at a rate of about 90% accuracy. This is what the dashboard is going to look like on your computer when you're looking at your health report. So this particular cow has got 80% probability that she's got mastitis. And you can see here she's got severely elevated temperature with the thermometer with the exclamation point. We do offer several different levels of severity to pop up. So if you only want to look at the most severe, you would pick the red. Orange is less severe, and the yellowish orange is going to be the least severe. So if you're crunched for time, like most guys are going to do, they're probably not going to look at these cows. They're going to look at the most severe cows, because that's the best use of your time. So this is a graph that's going to show you just how it's going to appear on the graph with a little purple brain to indicate mastitis. Hornsteads, I believe they're in Wisconsin, 1,800 cows. They are pretty excited to be using our artificial intelligence. So with smaXtec, we do know that there's a huge iceberg out there. There's a lot of stuff going on inside that cow we can't see. With smaXtec internal monitoring, a lot of that stuff that you hadn't been able to see in the past, we're starting to bring that to light and be able to see it, see more than just the tip of the iceberg. So what does set us apart is early detection of subclinical issues. It does save you time and money. We have an excellent support team in the US. I think we've got support staff in several states. So if you call them and one's available, you'll get somebody. We also know reproductive performance is better on healthier cows. So if we can catch these cows with metritis or mastitis early on and get them on track before your volunteer wait period, you have a much better chance of having that cow settle. So improve longevity. We do know older cows are more profitable. We've been extremely successful at helping guys reduce their cull rate. And when we reduce the cull rate, you actually have fewer heifers to raise and you have older cows that are more profitable. Labor efficiency, we do help reduce hormone shots, eliminate tail painting. So we have some labor efficiency by reducing that. And it also allows you to know which cows need attention instead of walking the barns like everybody used to. The other challenge too is everybody's got a labor crunch. It's getting harder and harder to find that skill set to be able to detect sick cows. So we're giving you a list of cows to go look at. Been tremendously successful with milk quality, catching these cows subclinically. We've got 700 cow dairy here in Homer, New York, that had like 140,000 somatic cell count, and he's running about 85,000 now. And he actually had another monitoring system for 6 or 7 years prior to using smaXtec. One of the things we do focus on when we put the system in is reducing the number of cows that leave the herd in 150 days. Been tremendously successful getting that lowered on a lot of dairies, as these are the cows that you got a lot of money invested in them and you'd like to get some milk out of them. And if they're leaving in that 150 days, 450 days in milk, that's kind of disappointing. So we do try to assist guys getting that number down so that we're losing a very small percentage of those cows in that first 150 days. And we can do a lot of that in the pre-fresh period, catching these cows with ketosis or milk fever, even mastitis in the dry cow period. So if we reduce the cull rate, we can actually reduce the number of heifers needed to be raised. That's a individual decision, obviously. Some guys are going to raise every heifer they get, regardless of how many they need. But heifers are costing, $2,300, $2,400 or $2,500 a piece to raise. If you can minimize the number of heifers you raise, you can save yourself some big money. Reducing antibiotic usage, improving reproductive performance, and then longevity again. See if this will play. Here we go. And it doesn't look like this is going to go. There we go.
Are you ready to discover your herd's potential and enhance performance? With a groundbreaking smaXtec health system, this is exactly what you can achieve. Our individual inner body temperature measurement, group temperature analysis, and innovative feeding tool help you uncover hidden problems in the barn and improve your performance. smaXtec empowers you to provide the best possible care for your cows. Feeding errors in dry cows are a thing of the past. smaXtec identifies these issues quickly and precisely so that you can provide your cows with the optimal ration, ensuring they achieve peak performance. But that's not all. Our smaXtec system proves invaluable during the transition phase. It detects subclinical milk fever hours before calving, allowing for early intervention to prevent dangerous secondary diseases like clinical milk fever or metritis. Acting at this crucial stage is vital for success, as up to 60% of multilactating cows may be affected by subclinical milk fever. smaXtec not only prevents parturient paresis, but also significantly reduces health problems throughout lactation, such as mastitis and lameness, ensuring your cows remain productive. Is there still untapped potential in your barn? Now is the perfect time to harness it. With smaXtec, you can reach your target performance, avoid significant production drops, and maintain persistence until the end of lactation. Now let's take a look at the lactation curve to see how this works. If subclinical milk fever is detected too late or is overlooked, it can lead to diminished performance and potential secondary diseases like metritis, ketosis, or avomazal displacement. Fortunately, smaXtec allows you to early detection and treatment translate to higher performance and prevention of secondary diseases. You notice the difference when subclinical milk fever is identified early and treated properly. Higher operational performance in the first 40 days of lactation, no secondary diseases, and consistent performance until the end of lactation are crucial for maximizing milk yield and your cow's profitability. With smaXtec, you also catch mastitis in a timely manner, avoiding significant performance drops, 4,400 pounds in the lactation. With a milk price of $15.68, this equates to a loss of $690 per animal. In summary, the lactation curve highlights the incredible power of smaXtec on your farm. We identify potential health problems and feeding errors early, ultimately improving your herd's performance. Contact us today to get the best out of your barn.
Okay, so then we get into, we do have a return on investment calculator, but this particular slide is showing IFCN is an independent organization that actually looked at the economic effect of smaXtec technology on dairies. The long and short of it is they looked at, I believe it was 10 plus dairies before smaXtec and after smaXtec. And after they put smaXtec in, these dairies on average were $190 more profitable per farm than before smaXtec. So then we're down to questions.
Thanks, Joe. We do have some questions. I'm going to put up the QR code for the credits. And... all right, there we go. All right, Joe. You mentioned at the beginning that the bolus has a magnet in it. There's a question here. Does the bolus also act as a magnet, and does it given to a cow interfere with the bolus and how it works?
We do use a magnet to turn it on because it comes from the manufacturer in sleep modes to extend battery life. There is not a magnet in it. Once it is turned on, a magnet, if a cow has a magnet, it will not affect the bolus at all. So when we do, the bolus does stay in the cow forever. It is guaranteed for the life of the animal. So if for whatever reason the battery does die in 5 years, we just send you a free bolus.
Is that the battery life of the bolus, about 5 years?
We're expecting about 5 years. In a pasture application, when the cows go away from the base station, the battery life might be diminished slightly, but in a freestall application, it should last 5 years.
Okay. Another question we have is, how young of an animal can you put the bolus in?
Looking at about, the official answer is 330 kilograms, which is basically 300 kilograms, which is 660 pounds. So
do folks put them in before breeding age, or is breeding
Ty-
age generally when
Ty-
they go in?
Typically, it's an individual decision. We've got some dairies that put it in just to lactating cows, and we've got quite a few out there that are putting it in their breeding age animals, and they stay an animal for the life of the animal on the farm.
Gotcha. Another question here from Jeff. One slide mentioned pH. Can this be used to detect rumen health issues?
Yes, we do. We do rumination. The pH bolus was developed to do pH instead of using a fistulated cow. So we do offer a pH bolus that can do monitor pH and monitor rumination or pH issues. Very good indicator if you're pushing the limit on the production on cows and they're subject to subacute rumen acidosis. It's a pretty good indicator when you're dealing with that. We can pick up a lot of things with just rumination alone, but the pH is a good tool in if you're dealing with subacute rumen acidosis.
Yep. I had a question about the water volume function.
Yep.
I know that's temperature dependent, but can you detect changes in feeds that have a different water content, like say pasture versus dry hay, or changes in like the actual dry matter of your TMR? Are those reflected in those functions, or is it just for drinking bouts?
It's the temperature inside the reticulum changes very drastically when she drinks. Where we do sometimes have some what we call drinking alerts is on some organic pastured dairies when it's been raining for days and the cows go out and eat wet grass. And then they don't drink because they're getting all the water they need off the wet grass. Because that was a little education for me, because I actually called the customer one day and said, I think we got a problem with your water because the cows aren't drinking. And she just laughed and she goes, the grass is so wet, they don't need to drink. She goes, the water fountain is full and they're all within 15 feet of the water fountain. She goes, it's just they aren't drinking because they're getting all the water they need.
Does that, in situations like that, does that translate into changes in total intake? Do you see that in rumination also, if that's the case that you're picking up?
I don't think there's a change in dry matter intake. It's just that the cows are getting so much water from their food source that they just quit drinking.
Okay. I had a couple of questions for both of you since we've got about 10 minutes or here. So both Joe and Bryce, are you offering any support on developing protocols for preventative treatment when these alerts are thrown through your programs, or are you just telling producers that they need to work with their individual veterinarians?
Absolutely. We do. Our customer success team will work very closely with customers. What we like to do is get the vet involved and the nutritionist involved and have a whole team approach. But we do individual protocols and help customers develop those, because every farm is going to be different.
Great.
We do work with the vet nutritionist as well. We give the vet more input than we have, and also with CowManager being in a three-way part, Zoetis and Select Sires. If they're a Zoetis account and herd, we'll work with Zoetis as well to implement the products that they sell us.
There's a request, Joe, if you could put your contact information in the chat to share. And one last question for both of you is, I think one thing we hear about when producers implement these types of technologies is just the overall data overload. Like, it is just so much information. So I'm wondering how you address that with producers, and also about how long does it take for farms to really start integrating this information and seeing how useful it is? Joe, you want to go first? Sorry.
Sure. There is a tremendous amount of data. And some people actually will adapt to the amount of data very quickly. And some get a little bit overwhelmed. We do have the capability to turn off some data. So they don't have quite so much. Usually what we do in those cases is we focus on the heat detection. And then once they're comfortable with heat detection, we start turning some of the health alerts and rumination alerts on so they're not completely overwhelmed. But with our system, you get it all. There are no modules. You get the rumination, heat detection, temperature monitoring, you get everything. And if you got questions, you can call the customer success team and they will go through the Zoom meeting with you and go over it. So we do offer, well, actually on every installation, we install it. And then 10 days later, you'll have 10 days, or depends on your schedule, you'll have a Zoom meeting with one of our customer success members and go through how the system works, look at the data, and then 7 to 10 days later, you have another meeting and then another. Usually it's 3 to 4 meetings after the initial install. So the customers are very comfortable with what data they're looking at and what it means.
Super, thanks.
With CowManager, we often at times see the same issue of a lot of data coming all at once. So it takes about 7 days to get a baseline for cows with our system. About 2 to 3 weeks later, our Select Sires team that helps us with the sales, they'll usually schedule an on-farm visit to do some in-person training to be able to answer any questions and go through all the data. Sometimes it does take a little bit, especially with the nutrition module, because there's so much data there that you almost just have to sit down for an hour and play around with it and dig into it yourself and learn that way. But we can train you on that as well. And in addition, with the nutrition module, it's often at times best to have a couple of months worth of data rather than 2 or 3 weeks, just because that way you have a broader picture of what's going on farm.
Super. I don't see any more questions here. Thank you so much, Joe and Bryce, and thanks for putting your contact information in the chat for folks. I think this concludes our session here today. We hope you will all join us on Wednesday at noon to hear from Kevin Jorgensen from Select Sires. Also, he'll be sharing a presentation about genetic selection strategies for 2030 and beyond. So really talking about breeding the cow that's going to milk in the future for us. And you can use the same registration, the same link that you received when you registered for this series or this session as well. Thank you very much. And everyone, I hope you have a great day.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.